Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined once more by Sam and Phil for another, I say spoiler discussion, another one. Star Wars is back, as we all know, with the Acolyte now streaming on Disney Plus worldwide. The first two episodes dropped this morning if you're in the UK, last night if you're in America. And we are here to sort of give some spoiler-filled thoughts on it. We're going to go through the two episodes, not scene by scene, but probably talking a lot about the characters we've met over the first few episodes and all that sort of stuff. But before we do start talking the show, how is everybody doing today?
I'm very good, thank you, George. I'm very happy to have Star Wars back after the rush that was the Phantom Menace. And I think that two episodes, a 2 episode drop, I love, but also hate on a weekday. So trying to watch them both before tonight was a little bit difficult, but we made it, and I'm very happy with what we've got so far.
Yeah, doing good. This day has been long awaited, and I'm so glad it's here and so glad I finally get to talk High Republic with you guys, because I've been on my own a little bit for the last few years, so finally get my jam.
Well, there was the game, and we will talk High Republic soon as well, actually, because I guess that's going to be a really interesting topic of discussion for a lot of people. There'll be a lot of people watching it for the very first time, I guess. Or not watching it, discovering this era for the first time. Technically, it would be my second after Fallen Order. I get the two mixed up. The sequel, the second one. Jedi Survivor. There we go. They could have just done a better second name. Come on. But I'm not going to moan about that. But seeing as it's Star Wars and we're talking spoilers, this is your final warning. If you've not watched the first two episodes, don't continue watching this video. We're going to be talking about, the opening scene of the series is literally half the marketing campaign and one of the biggest spoilers so far. So there is your warning, but we do want to hear from you. So please do comment with your thoughts on the Acolyte, whether you've enjoyed it, whether you haven't enjoyed it, your thoughts, where you think the story might go. If you're curious by the mystery of that is this assassin, that the Acolyte, who is the master, is it the apprentice we've seen, all that sort of stuff. We'll be trying to talking about that, and every Wednesday we'll probably get a bit more of the puzzle. Hopefully it doesn't end with a big cliffhanger or something like that, and we get this story tied in. But we do want to hear from everyone at home, and you can go get us on our social medias, linktree.com/cinemasavvy. So where we announce all of our videos, our reviews. And that'll take you to Facebook, Twitter, Letterboxd, and Instagram, where we are sort of posting again, and videos are slowly ramping back up. We have Carl in the comments. Lovely to see Carl as always. We have Dave in the comments as well. Dave's not joining us today, but I will be curious to get his thoughts. If he does want to comment them, we'll bring them up. We will bring up anyone's thoughts. But I guess the best way to start this discussion is our thoughts heading into the Acolyte. Now, I'm very lucky. I spoke about it in the spoiler-free video yesterday. I got to attend the UK premiere as a combo guest as press, as a combo guest through the droid builders that I'm a part of. So it was a weird happy valley that I got to do like both the fan side of it and the watching side of it. But I've been hyped for this series since it was announced. I guess it doubles up. I have no knowledge of the High Republic. I've not read a single comic. I've not read a single book. I've played Fallen Survivor, as I said. I have nothing against literature. To me, and I've spoken to people about this before, like Star Wars to me is a very visual medium that I struggle to get into Star Wars books the same way I get into normal novels or autobiographies and stuff like that. So I'm very away in the sense of that. Phil, you've kept us very happily in the loop for the last few years, filling us in on phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, I believe. I've seen a lot of friends who have read the books that tweet about it. I've seen a lot of cosplays at celebrations. So the High Republic seems very successful, and I guess this is the first time it's making its way to live action. It is the key. There was an animated series, wasn't there? The little Yoda one. Or was that a game? I don't know.
The Young Adventures.
That's the one. So I've been curious for this. I'm if I'm really honest, I'm more intrigued by the cast that's come together for it. I'm a big fan of Amanda Stenberg. I've not seen Squid Game, but getting someone like Lee Jung Jae as well for his first English language production. And there's a more interesting approach to the show being made. I'll be biased. It's shot here in the UK, so I know people that worked on it, whether post-production, pre-production, all that sorts of stuff. So I've had a very vested interest in the show. It is worth mentioning this is the first Star Wars thing to shoot here since Andor, which we know from a production standpoint is probably the best of the Disney shows. So I've been excited for this, and it's kind of nice to go into a Star Wars series not knowing I must have read or watched all of these to understand this, and it's the first time I can sit there like, this is something very, very new to me. Obviously, Yoda doesn't pop up in episode 1, and nor does Darth Plagueis. Whether they pop up at all, we'll never know, but in my eyes, they're the only 2 characters alive that I know of, so it's an open book for anyone and everyone, but I kind of want to get both of your thoughts on all that stuff too.
Yeah, so I mean, it's very similar to George. I'm not a wealth of knowledge on the High Republic, so we're very thankful that Phil's here for this, and I know how much Phill you've been looking forward to this. I mean, when it was first announced, I was kind of intrigued, and I think everyone has to have been a little bit, right? And I think when we were at Celebration last year, and we were lucky to see like the cast come on stage and get that trailer, which they were like, don't film, and to see that play out was really got me hooked. And I think the cast that we've got is fantastic, and I really respect all the characters for kind of creating these these actors creating these new characters in this world, which we know, but we really don't if you've just been watching Star Wars media rather than reading books or comics or any of the the further expanded universe. So I'm really thankful to get a window into that, and especially after Jedi Survivor, which kind of touches upon things that have happened in the past, and you see some of the intricacies of that, and just hints about what the High Republic was. So to see more of that is really exciting. To even things that may seem simple, like the different visuals of the Jedi, and how they presented themselves at one point, to how the world treats them, is so much different than what we get a lot of the time, especially at this moment in time when we get a lot of original trilogy, sequel trilogy TV shows like Ahsoka and Andor. So to be in this era is really exciting, and I think everyone's done a great job so far.
Yes, I have. The one thing I had coming into the show, apart from all of my excitement, and there was an awful lot of it, was the overwhelming sense of annoyance I've had against the community who have absolutely slandered Leslie Hyland going into the show. The amount that's come out about it has just put me off and put my excitement to one side, and I've had to sit there and either defend it or sit there and go, the amount of, like, when you go and watch the trailer, the amount of negative comments, the amount of laughing emojis you'll see on social medias and all the rest of it, the amount of Star woke jokes you get and all the rest of it, I'm going, you don't know what's going to happen in the show, you don't know what the character's about, but you're already prejudging it based on the creator, and even that's not even a fully founded thing. It's just people having their own rather bigoted views, which has kind of led me to a whole frustrating point of, I just want to enjoy this for what it is. You then take that side aside, and yeah, I have been so excited to get to this point. It's a story that the other part that frustrates me is people complaining about it and go, well, this is what the fans have been asking for, a story that we don't know about. These are a new era, new characters. The only character that even crosses over from even the books and comics is Renestra Rowe. And her story, there's so much to it, and I'll get into that when we talk a bit more about the High Republic in general. But as a High Republic fan, I mean, even when we did our old show, George, you remember when they had the entire announcement for Project Luminous? I stayed up, I was ready for the announcement. As soon as it dropped, I was there and ready for it. And here we are 5 years later.
It got delayed from COVID, didn't it?
Yes, it did. Yeah, so originally it was supposed to come out in 2020, came out in January 21, so I had to wait a little bit longer. But I have been very excited for this day, so I can't wait to get into all the nitty-gritty details.
Yeah, I just want to kind of jump on the stuff you mentioned about Leslie Hayden. The amount of shit I've seen online is insane. Like, I'm all for people not enjoying the show. Like, someone very close to me doesn't like it, and that's fine. They've watched both episodes, so they don't care in the sense that I'm welcoming to other opinions. But just some of it's hit that point. Like last week at the premiere was insane. Like the amount of cosplayers in High Republic, and to me, that's just like, I've not seen any of this. So all these new costumes, all this batshit stuff, very cool. Seeing the cast, the crew, chatting with everyone, buzzing. The fans that were there were excited. press people were excited. The dress code was be smart and just have to chuck it in because the usual people will cry like, no, you don't get paid to go to those events. Funny story. Someone I know used to think you'd get paid to go. So when it was their time to go, they decided to not go because they realized had to pay for their own trains to London. I mean, trains to London are expensive, but there's like delusional on this thinking that you actually do get paid to go to press screenings. So yeah, like a lot of stuff was set. Listen, it's not going to be for everyone. That's fine. Like I'm still not sold on the entire era, but this is my first exploration in it, right? I've seen, what is it? 1 hour 17 minutes of the High Republic from a 5-year publishing plan. So I can't really comment on that too much. But for me, what sort of, and it kind of reminds me a bit. I'm laughing because of I can't remember what we did it, but we got a crawl. It's like it's not a crawl, but it was sort of a crawl. I was like, yes, set 100 years before the rise of the Empire. I'm like, brilliant. Like, not putting it in black and white, but my question and my worry has been, will I understand this? Because I don't. It's not like I don't have any intention of reading comics and books. I know I'm not going to, but I still want to watch it. And it isn't taking anything away. There'll be people feel like yourself that will have characters that mean a lot more, references that maybe mean a lot more. But for me, it's like new characters. I'm curious to learn about this and that and who this is and who that is. And that's a big thing for me. And the show nailed it with having a crawl and the first, without jumping too far, look at the Jedi Temple, meeting people within there. The stuff that we know, and I'm sort of waffling at this point, but you know, we always hear about the arrogance of the Jedi. Now, that was never really put in live action because that was something Clone Wars did a phenomenal job at going through and has even done it with stuff like Tales of the Empire since. But we get to see it in live action. We get to see them first. I'm like, hey, hush, hush, let's cover this up from any political problems that could come our way. And I like that this is exploring that. And I have to talk about Leslie Headland as the showrunner, that she's been very vocal. Her favorite Star Wars film is The Phantom Menace, like yours, Sam. She spoke about her prequel, like, not necessarily upbringing, but her prequel background. Amanda Stenberg is a prequel diehard. Her favorite is Revenge of the Sith. Like, she dressed up as Padme last year at Celebration, which was really cool. And to me, as a prequel generation person, and that is my favorite era, I like the fact that we've got showrunners. I mean, obviously we had Filoni, which sort of counts but doesn't count because he is like the prequels now. Like he's, you know, George Lucas version 2. But to have a new showrunner who's so open to that era, that spoke about that so much, to me that goes a distance. And if you're going to be doing a show set 100 years before the prequels, you better be one of those prequel people. Not in a rude way, but in a sense of storytelling that, hey, they understand the politics and they clearly enjoy that part of Star Wars, and they'll probably find a way to weave it in as it should be done. And I'm not going to get into the sequels, didn't do this, but I've always said this, like the politics not being in the sequels is something that I didn't like. And people, Star Wars isn't political. Well, it was, because George Lucas told you all back in the 70s and 80s, and then the 90s, and then the noughties. And even again in interviews last decade. So it's just one of them. You know, I'm not here to moan about what has been and what already is, but some of the stuff I've seen online is outrageous. I mean, I'm not going to get into the fire thing, but it's like, is it Star Wars theory when he complained that in Andor there was a brick?
Yeah.
And now people complain that in Star Wars there's a fire because it's not real. I'm like, okay, brilliant. Every time you watch a space battle, please turn off the surround sound because there's no sound in space. So. You know, again, I'm not here to be petty. I'm here to talk stars. That's kind of what you said, Phil. Like, you just want to sit back and enjoy it. Like, I was buzzing last week, and then it's just online's just been a cesspool. And you know that Twitter's a very vocal minority. It always has been, but no doubt the laser thumbnails are going to be all over YouTube this week. I saw that Rotten Tomatoes was at 40% 6 hours before the episodes went up for the audience scores, so they clearly knew what they were doing there as well. So, yeah, I'm enjoying my Star Wars, and I'm enjoying the first 2 episodes. And guess what? If I didn't like the first episodes, I would also be like, hey, guys, this hasn't worked for me. I'm probably still going to watch the rest of the series because even getting into the kickstart of the story, what are your thoughts, guys, that we're actually getting somewhat of a mystery series within Star Wars? Again, we're 2 episodes in. I don't want them to do like 2 episodes more mystery than it just be like some random 4-episode nonsense. I feel like we're actually going to have a series where it feels like you have to watch every episode week to week for it to come together. I know that's a very loud overstatement, but I'm kind of curious for your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't go into Star Wars looking for surprises or twists, but when they do happen, you know, I want them to work and I want them to be effective. And luckily, you know, this did that. I mean, obviously, I was very aware of what was happening all around, you know, blatant sexism and racism specifically. towards the show and the people who are working on it. And it's really frustrating because you don't want that to change anything that you're thinking about. You know, you want to enjoy the show for the show and what it is and what this cast and crew are presenting. And luckily, I think what it's done is a mystery that's been done handled very well, set in an era which isn't too far away from what we already know, but enough that you feel the difference and that you're enjoying something that's actually quite new. And to anyone, you know, who has been complaining that we've had too much of the similar, then this is the opportunity to really engage with something that is actively trying something different. So to get, you know, a setup like we've got with, you know, an assassin having a fight with the Jedi Master, and, you know, the spoiler is, you know, killing them, and finding out that they want to kill a select number of Jedi, that's a really intriguing plot, because you want to know why. How is this going to happen? Will they be successful? And then what else is going to happen outside of that? Which characters are we going to see? I really appreciate the cast, and I think we've had some great characterization across the 2 episodes. I really get a sense of who most of these characters are, which, you know, is a bit of a worry when you're being introduced to so many different characters, especially with the run times that we've got. But luckily, I feel like it's come out quite well. So yeah, for me, the general story works, but also, you know, who we're following works too, and it just adds to the intrigue, because there's still characters that we've not seen yet, and we kind of want to just know why is this happening.
Yeah, and for me, it's a similar thing. And obviously, it's established, I've got quite a lot of background when it comes to the High Republic. The one connecting character is Vanessa Rowe. And I did have a friend of mine say we kind of felt like you had to know who she was originally. Well, okay, if you felt that way, fair enough. I didn't see it as that, but then again, this is a character who I do know. So if you have that opinion, that's fair and valid, I guess. But from the overall perspective, I didn't know anybody else. And yet it still like a very Star Wars story, but also felt like a very High Republic story. When you have the two meshed together, obviously then it's been a job well done. This does feel, when I say a High Republic story, the whole thing with Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3 is there's an overarching story throughout each phase. It all connects up. And within each set of books and comics, there is stories that all link together to make this entire overarching one. However, each journey has its own story within either each book or each comic or each little series. There's little bits that connect here and there. This has the very good feeling of, here is your opening 2 episodes. Guess what? Brand new episodes, brand new show, brand new characters. We have to do the background. Here's your introduction. But they did the introduction without it feeling like it was an introduction. Yes, we met up with Master Indira, and yes, she got killed, but you didn't need to know much more than she's a Jedi Master, she got killed, cool. It sets up the premise for what's to come. When we meet Jedi Master Soul, again, we've had that for the trailers and all the rest of it, but it's very much the same feeling of, you get the name once, maybe twice, you get the setup, done, go. That's all you need. And it's done it really well. And something that I was worried about it coming into it, going, okay, how much do I have to explain to people who hasn't watched it? Because I'm more than happy to sit and chat for hours, but if I have to sit and do that, then they've done something wrong. I didn't feel that whatsoever. And I mean, I had the twin part spoiled for me. And I do feel it's a bit like, okay, Star Wars, there's twins. It's a kind of an overdone trope a little bit, but if that's my only gripe, fantastic. I don't care, because it's just going to be interesting. And I think going forward, though, it's also a different type. The split up through a bigger kind of tragedy. Everything is going to come forward, come full circle. We've got a new dark side. They even calls it the Acolyte as well. They're not even calling themselves Sith, because don't forget, the Sith have been gone for over a millennia. Again, linking up with Kelly Mundi. There's so much flavor and text added into it. And alongside that, they did the similar with naming the planets. But alongside that, when you got to Coruscant, they still named Coruscant. Yes, people know what Coruscant is, but it kept the theme going. It kept the style going. So from a perspective of, these are the first 2 episodes of a show. If I wasn't a High Republic fan, I was just a Star Wars fan, I would still be like, okay, this is cool. I had the added aspect. Yes, I'm wearing my Acolyte t-shirt I picked up at Celebration last year. Have I been excited for well over a year? Yes, I have. Do I have extra investments? Of course I do. Did I let that affect my bias? No, I got up this morning, I got my coffee on, I got the big 4K TV going, turned the volume up and went, right, time to sit back, relax and enjoy. And that opening crawl which feels like what you get in all the books and comics for not only the High Republic era, but for every era of Star Wars, where they tell you the little here's where we're at. It set the scene perfectly. It tells you when it's set, it tells you what's going on. It kind of gives you a little overview without it being too much. It's similar to what we had in Solo, when you had its little version of the Crawl. Again, simple yet effective. I'm going into this series, all I wanted was to be able to sit here and go, right, I'm excited. Who else is with me? Let's enjoy it for what it is. And if I get extra bits from it, grand. Hopefully I can then drag other people to read the books and comics and go, right, you can geek out alongside me, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah, and I kind of like that approach as well. That it's the right like you woke up, you're happy to see it. Now I've just realised enough because I've realised that next Wednesday I'm going to have to set my alarm like an hour earlier than normal because it's that ridiculous. Well, the 2 p.m. UK release is what 9 p.m. ET and like 6 p.m. PT. So it's basically like, hey, if you live in LA or if you live in America, you can have a good time. Because how dare they had to have had midnight releases for the first few years of Star Wars shows. And obviously all the spoilers everywhere on the feeds within hours as per the episodes. And it is going to be an insane month for TV. Like for anyone curious, like House of the Dragon starts soon. We've got Doctor Who going. The Boys starts soon. The Bear comes out. We've got The Acolyte. I'm probably missing something else. Like there's a lot of TV shows at the moment. And to get another Star Wars is always great. And I think this is going to be one of two we get this year. I know that Skeleton Crew needs to come out eventually. It's sort of locked in the Lucasfilm archives at this point in time. That film before The Acolyte, didn't it? Like that's been
no, it filmed after The Acolyte, but before Andor season 2.
I feel like it was filming before The Acolyte. It's been filming a long time.
They've got that locked in though for full to
and they can't do reshoots because the kids have grown up. That's the murmurs doing the rounds, which is kind of terrifying at the same time. But yeah, I mean, let's talk some of this. I mean, Phil, you mentioned Jedi Master Indara, Trinity, Carrie-Anne Moss from The Matrix has been all over the marketing. We all saw the Phantom Menace at the re-release. The sequence at the end was the fight scene, and that is the big moment. And she's gone in the first few minutes, and I kind of liked how they did it. We got a great introduction to Amanda Stenberg playing the character of May, which I'm curious by because again, if anyone's not seen Bodies, please go and watch it over the next few weeks. It's one of her best roles. Most people know her as Rue from the Hunger Games in the first film. But I'm in this sort of weird trance. It's hard to talk about the story. We're doing a spoiler discussion. We could talk about whatever we want. And I'm kind of doing a general overview here. There's not really much to say on the story because we've seen 2 episodes out of 8 and it's a mystery. It's not The Mandalorian. It's not a weekly Saturday morning, like, here's the villain of the week. Here's this week's adventure. It is like it feels like a mini-series more than a season 1. Whether it ends up being only a season 1, I do not know. But I like the idea that someone is murdering Jedi, and we need to find out who this person is to bring them to justice and unravel the enigma. Now, Phil, do you say it might not be the Sith? The theory doing the rounds, the one I like, is that I mean, we don't know the character's name yet, but the person that appears in the episode 1, people think could be the apprentice of one of the 2 Sith that could be in power, looking for his next apprentice. Now, it's fun to get week-to-week speculation, as long as people remember it's speculation and speculate away, but disappointment does come with speculation at times, as many Star Wars fans should know by now at this point in their lives. But what are we thinking as an overview of the story? Before, bringing in Carrie-Anne Moss, killing her off straight away, sort of lifting up your villain that we can see there's a credible threat now in hand-to-hand combat and use of the Force, trying to get a lightsaber during combat, which I thought interesting to then not take it but leave it by the body. What do you guys think's going on there before we, I guess, talk about the core characters we're going to clearly spend time with for the next few weeks?
Yeah, it's weird because this feels like a very personal thing for May to do, and I really enjoyed the Osha May twist. By the way, I thought it was that. I'm glad it wasn't ruined. I feel sorry for Phil that it did because the marketing didn't reveal that, and but as soon as it was revealed, I was like, all I could think of was Jaina and Jason Solo for whatever reason, more than Luke and Leia. But it's really interesting to have kind of the yin and yang, good and bad of the Force. So from that point of view, it was really interesting anyway. But as I said, it feels very personal, this kind of attack on these Jedi Masters that were involved in a fire, in something, an attack that May apparently did as a child, that then led Osha to the Jedi and May presumed dead. So clearly there's something, something's happened there from a certain point of view. I'm sure perhaps kind of a Luke in The Last Jedi with Ben. I feel like something like that will happen, and a truth will come to light that will make the Jedi look, like the bad guys, which they could be in that situation. But the fact that they're going on this, and that someone with a lightsaber, someone who's trained in the dark side, is kind of, leading May to this. I don't know what their position is. This a test for May in order to go, actually, you are ready to be an apprentice, perhaps? I don't know. But I think it's the intrigue of it and the not knowing. And I really hope they kind of slowly get this out week to week, because that will make the finale all the much better. Whether or not we do get a second season or if it's just going to be this, I'm not sure either at this point. But yeah, I think it's something that is very different for Star Wars, and hopefully it's not too much of an obvious thing. And I've heard that this could be quite a dark show. I am expecting a lot of these characters to be in kind of perilous danger, and maybe not all come out of it alive. There's a reason why the Jedi are very comfortable in the Phantom Menace, is because they're not worried about any threats, but clearly there is one out there. So I can imagine that perhaps the Jedi involved with this won't all come out of it alive. But yeah, the setup is great, from my opinion.
Yeah, so from the lawsuit we had last year, that came out, there was supposedly 5 seasons. From other sources, we've had to say the second season's already greenlit. And then a lot of the negative side is, the second season's been cancelled before the first even comes out due to the massive backlash of the fans. So it's like, no, it's just a very vocal minority, as it always is. But hey, so that's kind of, I don't know what we're going to get going forward. This doesn't feel like a one and done. But that's that aside. Obviously, yeah, we open up with Master Indira's death, and I love the fight scene because it was so much more than that. The intro of May rocking up and going, right, attack me. Everyone just laughs at her because, well, a Jedi won't attack out of just randomness or malice. It's not what they do. And even when you then get into the fight, once she's provoked into the fight, Master Indira, her whole thing is defense, not offense. There's no kind of, it's the Jedi doing what the Jedi do well. And again, this is something that's coming from the High Republic. It's a lot more based on the Knights of the Round Table, Arthurian Knights kind of style of writing, storytelling, that old feel and perspective of the knights that are looked up to. They don't just go and take what they want and do what they want. They are supposed to be protectors, and the whole bit of the High Republic is those Jedi are protectors. Yes, they have their own political power, but hey, they did by the time you get to the prequel era, hence why Palpatine was like, and you're gone. There was so much more to it, and then what you had was the lovely, horrific balance of her death. Of May went to kill the bar owner, and as she was stopping that, she herself got killed. But she died defending people. She died doing what was right and being a Jedi. And yeah, May constantly going for the lightsaber was really cool. And then obviously then you get more into the show from there. We're going to continue on as we talk about other characters, both Osha and May, Master Soul, Quimar, and Yord, who I find annoying, but in a kind of a good, funny way. You then have the aesthetics coming into it. There's so much more that we will talk about going forward. But just from the opening, yes, this is the scene we had in at the end of The Phantom Menace, plus what we got in the trailer, and most of the marketing just without the death at the end. And for them to really focus on that, plus the crash onto the planet, was fantastic. And going into it from there, we talk about a setup of a story that's to come with the fire. Well, not only that, you have someone who left the Jedi Order. Well, Ahsoka left the Jedi Order, and that's been well known. But apart from that, it's not really a precedent that's been set. It's kind of a unique one-off. So to have this be another example of, even at the height of the Jedi, someone walking away. I am very intrigued as to how they're going to do that and what's more to come. So even those first 10-15 minutes of the episode, the initial setup. Also, the other thing that people have been complaining about for quite a while now was there's not enough aliens in Star Wars. If that does not have enough aliens in it for you, I don't know what will, because there's just so much more in it.
I think they're shooting in the UK. You've got the British crews. You've got the creature effects department that obviously did the sequel trilogy, Rogue One, Solo. There'll be so many unused concepts, the stuff that was made that they're probably now allowed to use again. Like they've probably gone back into the vaults, took some fact, thought yes, we can finally do this, and you can just always spot the British productions from the American ones. And it's not a criticism of the American productions; it's just two completely different styles of production. And there is a reason why every studio is moving to the UK to do these productions that we do have the best people that work on these, all that sort of stuff. And that's not like a dig at them. That's just the fact of this scenario at point. It's got a quick comment by Carl saying, isn't Skeleton Crew coming out in December? That's the rumor. A rumored December release. I mean, if it's... I keep calling it Strange Things in Space. End of year, family, kids, excitement, all that sort of stuff, it would probably make sense. And going with what you said earlier, Phil, could it be 2 seasons? Could it be 5? Could it be none? Disney don't even know themselves, let's be honest. With the Disney Plus stuff, with the restructuring of the company, Warner Brothers and Discovery, all these other mergers, Paramount and Skydance, there's so many unknowns. And the only thing we do know is that Bob Chapek was greenlighting far more shows than Disney could afford. And that the studio has lost billions on streaming services, which happens. Every studio does it. So I wouldn't be surprised if... I don't think Star Wars needs to be scaled back like Marvel did. Marvel was having, 4 shows a year and 3 films, and it just blew itself up. Whereas Star Wars seems to have that patient, hey, we're not officially announcing this is coming out yet, so we don't officially have to cancel it. But I'm curious at how the Acolyte ends and what they do moving forward. And that's with 2 episodes, and I'd be interested come the end of the series to see what other people think. But talking this, I mean, we mentioned some of the characters. Let's I don't want to just talk character by character because we'll be here forever. And this is sometimes the tricky things of like 2-episode finales. But we've got to talk about Osha, who we're introduced to, who at this point in time, I didn't know was a twin. Even cutaway lines like, hey, what did you get up to on your day off yesterday? And it's like, ha, she killed a Jedi. Nemoidians returned, which was in the Great Celebration trailer. Accents aren't as heavy as they used to be. And I can understand that, but I just, again, they looked phenomenal. Nemoidians are in Star Wars in 2024, and it wasn't a typical Trade Federation ship, and I get that because it's 100 years before. But let me not talk about years in Star Wars, because I really like the fact that Amanda Stenberg is playing 2 characters. I don't know how hidden this was in marketing. Now I've seen the poster, there's 2 characters, it's kind of obvious. So if anyone works out before, fair enough. If I'm thick, then that's on me. But I love the fact that episode 1 is this great build-up of she clearly did it. Is she like PTSD? Is she skits? Like, is it a bit like Moon Knight from Marvel a couple of years ago? But to eventually have this ideology that it's the twin sister she thought was killed, vice versa, to me sets a really interesting story point for the next few weeks. I'm excited to see what they do with that. I'm excited to learn more about the past of both characters. Why did Osha leave the Jedi? Why did May think that her sister was killed? There are so many questions this is sort of asked in the first episodes that I'm really intrigued to see what comes from it. Obviously, some of it's a bit on the nose. She was too old to be taken to be a Jedi. Now, where have we heard that before? So I really liked what they did, but the performance, I'm a big fan. And I kind of do want to know more. And I think it doesn't feel like we've got the same actor playing... Oh, you're playing like 2 different characters, but play them the exact same. Even in movement, persona, voice, it feels like 2 separate performances. And not many actors are great at doing that. I mean, I know James McAvoy always we spoke about for Split, and Tom Hardy of the Cray twins, but I've really enjoyed her in this. And I'm curious to see if they're going to have scenes together moving forward, what the plan is. But what are your thoughts on May and Osha so far? But also, we'll talk about Master Soul separately because he's worth his own thing, but there's a history there with other characters in the Jedi Order that we've met. And I like the fact this is building up relationships. It's not sort of smacking so over the head of saying, this is this person's friend. They were friends, but no longer. I like that it's leaving the audience a bit of intelligence to work some of the gaps out for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's giving very, very Lindsay Lohan in The Parent Trap. I mean, two completely different characters, both played by the same person. Really distinct characters as well. I think the performance, Amanda's doing great with it. Like I said, I don't know if it was earlier or if it was before we start recording, but in my head I was like, oh well, maybe she's astral projecting, maybe she's not aware, maybe it's like, I was trying to think of like other ways, because in my head it just didn't seem possible that there was a twin involved. So when it was like, oh right, okay, but then I'm like, because they're twins, I think my only criticism would have just been, that connection and what happened as children, just because, May seems to have a much more, to me, emotional reaction to Osha being alive rather than Osha does of May. So I'm just wondering, I mean, that was my perception anyway, but I mean, I'm just wondering what actually did go down. Everything leads back to that initial, incident. What happened that's now made all of these things happen afterwards. But no, I really liked kind of the setup for Osha, what she was doing, that she, away from the Jedi, just wanting to do her own thing. And that is so different from what May's doing. So I'm, excited for that. Her interactions with the people around her, like Yord, oh my God, like, I like him, but he's so frustrating. Like, he's just one of those guys like, I know everything. It's like, oh, shut up. Like, he's one of those, like, it feels like goody two shoes. Like, I know what's best. I read every single part of this scripture. I've been to every training session. I know everything. And then Saul's like, chill, just, feel a little bit more, don't, that's what being a Jedi is. Yeah. Use the teachings, but then he felt very much like Qui-Gon to me, Saul, which, is such a comforting thing. And I have to say, Lee Jung Jae's performance really impressed me, knowing that he had to, really, learn English to do this. And I can't imagine how difficult that is, especially kind of the older I get, the more difficult, I can imagine learning a language would be. So to do that and to perform so well was, a really impressive takeaway. I know there was some criticism in that Rolling Stone article about his English, which I thought was really unfair. Because to me there was no issues with that. I think
he doesn't speak English as well. Like, he's learned his lines in English to be able to be in that. That's fucking insane. Like, for an actor to do that as well.
Oh, what's his name? Plays Baze Malbus in Rogue One.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I can't remember his name.
He's not been seen since the spoiler, has he?
No. But the point is that, again, he learned line for line, basically. So he was going along. It's a similar thing here. So them taking... Oh, no. That annoys me.
Yeah, it's real. And I just think it's upsetting. And to be fair, a lot of people called out this article, and I think that's one of the I think it did get taken down. So, I mean... clearly there was a lot of stuff in there which just didn't seem fair at all from a critical perspective. So yeah, but I think Saul, his performance really impressed me, and I think to kind of be the lead Jedi that we're following, of course with some very interesting side characters by him too. Yeah, I think the performances that we got really good. But yeah. Osha and May, I think the setups, the main hook for me. I want to know what's happened with them. Amanda's done a great, distinct performance for both of them. And yeah, I'm wanting more actually already. The more we talk about it now, the more excited I am. I feel like I've had a delayed reaction after watching it this afternoon. It's been like, I'm actually really excited to find out.
Yeah, I mean, so to break it down a little bit, between Osha and May, what I love, and you said this well, Sam, was obviously May had the more emotional reaction to Osha being alive than Osha did to May, but that plays so much on the one's raised by the rather emotionless to some extent Jedi, one's been raised and trained by the dark side, which harnesses emotion. So even those reactions are then played upon the history of the characters without you even knowing the history of the characters. So yeah, for that particular performance, by Amanda to literally split personality, but being without it looking like a split personality. So do two different characters, two different people, but who are related, was fantastic. My favorite character so far actually is Jackie Lon, so that's definitely Keen's character, who's been fantastic. Like, Yord is a pain, and he is very kind of up himself, very Jedi-ish, but Daphne, on the other hand, has been very much just the royal pain in the arse, but in the light-hearted, funny Padawan way. And it's been so she so far has become my favorite character. I want to know more about her, but yes, that whole backstory, what happens with the fire, what happens when they're younger, how they've been split up, what happened next, why it starts, and then why they went down their separate paths. Also, why Osha just decides to leave the Order in the first place. Again, it's very much like, even when you have them meet up, unlike the really tense scene between Obi-Wan, Mace, and Ahsoka in Clone Wars Season 7, when you have Mace turn around and go, "Oh, that's Jedi business only, citizen." It's so needly. Whereas this feels like, "Hey, haven't seen you in a while. How you doing? Slight hiccup. You're kind of under arrest for a murder, but I don't believe it's you, but the evidence is overwhelming." And to add on to the overwhelming evidence part, I have to talk about Rebecca Henderson. I have to talk about Vanessa Rowe. I've mentioned her a few times already, and to give you guys the Cliff Note story, Vanessa Rowe was originally introduced in Phase 1 of the High Republic. She features in both Phase 1 and Phase 3, because Phase 2 is set even further in the past. In fact, the earliest we go to is 500 years before Episode 1, so quite a long time ago. Vanessa Rowe is Mary Allen. Mary Allen's Force sensitive can live up to 200 years, so although this is set 100 years before, or 100 to 150 years, depending on exactly where it's placed, she will be well within her prime at that particular point. She obviously has the light whip. We haven't seen that yet, but the fact we've seen it in a trailer, we know it's coming, has been joyous to me, because I was like, are they going to allow it on screen? Is this something people are going to, and people have complained a little bit, but a lot of people then come to its defense by going, well, have you read the Old Republic? It's in there, alongside the fact that there were similar whips in the Clone Wars. So people who I didn't think would defend it have already jumped to its defense. But her herself, at this point, she has become a master. She is on the Jedi Council, at least as far as I'm aware of at that particular point. She has gone from a Padawan, she gets knighted very early on as well, and goes through the trials during the High Republic era. She obviously then grows up. So by the time you meet her now, she's obviously been around for quite a while. She knows Master Yoda. She knows a lot of the other characters who we'll come to meet, obviously, throughout the show. But her performance so far has been fantastic, and there's a lot more to come from that. But to have the one character from the outside, so from those books and comics, be introduced in such a small way but a significant way, I can't wait to see more. But again, so Indira, Carrie-Anne Moss, again, fantastic, even for the only brief time she had. And Master Soul, again, super intrigued to see what we've got coming up, like more so from there. And even Master Tobin, again, we didn't see much from him, but the reference to the vow he took, again, that's from the High Republic, but it's an old Jedi vow of silence when they want to atone for something they need to find in a piece. It's a very small reference. The other reference we've got chucked in is the Jedi Vexor, which is the ship they use. So it's the one that's got the two, like, not a catamaran style, but the one that's got the two beams up front. There's a larger one called a long beam. We haven't seen that yet, but this is me going, all right, here's my dump of fully High Republic nerdiness. You then take that and extrapolate it into just what I thought from the pure acting performances. As I said, I think Daphne Keen's character, Jickie Long, is my favorite so far, and purely because, well, yes, she is a Padawan, but has that feeling of, I'm a Padawan, I'm learning, but guess what? I'm right, you're wrong, I'm a kid kind of aspect to it. And yeah, it's been fantastic. So you add all those together to what is an intriguing and different storyline for Star Wars. We've had, obviously, the tyrannical dictatorships. We've had a lot of the political aspects. We've had a lot of good storytelling already. Well, this is a new type of storytelling. It feels similar to Clone Wars in some of that, but that's not me having a knock at it. That's me actually complimenting it as it's a very consistent writing style. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward to what's to come.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of spoke about some of those characters. Master Sol, I want to talk about. Legion Jay's comparing to Qui-Gon Jinn, and I think it's perfect. It is that, hey, he's following the book type vibe. However, there is, Jedi have attachments are forbidden, and I love that they're playing at this angle, especially with his new apprentice. And Daphne Keen's been great in the show so far. I like the idea that he's like, no, it's not an attachment, is it? It's somebody that is almost being wronged that I need to find out more about. And I quite like that they are playing this up. And again, I spoke about the arrogance of the Jedi, and that's probably going to be a thing over the entire season. But I like the fact we're getting this small mission. You look at the Phantom Menace and where that began, right? The entire events of Star Wars happened because 2 Jedi were sent on a mission to a Trade Federation ship to stop a dispute. Like, as simple as that. Here we've got, 3 Jedi just being sent to find a prisoner who they believe to be wrongly imprisoned. And I like that this show is taking something as simple as that, and the events that are going to sort of spew from it are of something different that we haven't necessarily seen it before with Star Wars. There'll be similarities, but having these shows, having series, having these new eras, you're able to explore it in a way that isn't going to be as scale drastic as a film, and it shouldn't be. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful term. It's an 8 episode series, so please write it as a show. And Leslie Headland's done a great job at doing that. And kind of I jump of this is the runtime for these episodes too. It was 1 hour 17 total across 2 episodes. We always joke about Mandalorian that one day you'd have a 50-minute, then you'd have a 30-minute one. Each episode should be as long as it needs to be. When it's on a streaming service and it's not on a studio, you don't have the mandate of 40. Is it 42 minutes in America and 42 minutes for like an hour long episode in American TV? I like the fact you don't have to follow that on streaming. That it is the same thing, and the show is benefiting from that. The first episode didn't need a big cliffhanger, but you've introduced all these new characters, and we've got the simplistic idea of they're twins. She is innocent. They believe her. Now let's go find the twin sister to sort of kickstart it. And heading into episode 2, we start to learn a little bit more about May, and it is going to be somebody where it is, I've got 4 Jedi to kill, and we kind of sat there thinking, okay, you want to kill 4 Jedi, great. That's going to be a big part of it, and that's again where the series is heading. We get not necessarily a cliffhanger, but we know that Kel Necker, the Wookiee Jedi, is going to be a big thing in the next episode. It's been all over the marketing, and series have been a really interesting sort of predicament talking that, and I kind of want to. I mentioned I don't know how I turned a Master Soul discussion into basically being over 2 episodes, but to me, he is that sort of Harvey of the show that you've got quite a young cast. Not just acting age-wise as well, but in terms of their characters are clearly, there's an apprentice that left, the new apprentice, and then someone that's just made Jedi Knight. And it is there that you need that experienced master to be with them. And I just think it's nice to get a different perspective that it isn't someone blindly following the Jedi. And even the character mentioned, Phil, sorry, I forgot her name, the green one who's on the Jedi Master Council. They're not just taking... That's right. They're not just taking us to the council to be like, hey, guys, the Jedi Council, so let's go up and see them. I mean, we all know one person that will be there. But I like the fact it's like, the council's sending on a mission. A bit like episode 3. The council wants you to do this. The council wants you to do this. Whether you agree or disagree with it is not the point. That's your instructions. And I like that we are seeing that in the background, those little things that end up being big things as time goes by. But what are both your thoughts on sort of Master Slide? I know we spoke about the article of that. I haven't read it, but if they're just slightly things, that's just ridiculous. But what do we think about a character such as this? Like, I know people are like, it's a Master, he'll probably die a few episodes in. At one point, I thought he'd go in episode 2, but I like the fact that, Phil, you mentioned defense earlier, especially with, I'm just going to keep calling it Trinity from the Matrix, because it was basically a Kung Fu action sequence, so they could have Trinity playing Trinity in Star Wars, which is great, and I don't mind that, and it's one scene. But I like the fact that, as you said, their attack is their defense, and Soul just absolutely has May in the 2nd episode. And I like seeing that wisdom that it doesn't need to be lightsabers. The lightsaber is almost their last resort for war, for fighting. Like, they'll bring it out when they need to bring it out, not because they need it for the sake of it. And I like that clearly that got lost somewhere across 100-year century point. But what are we thinking with Soul? His connection, could it end up costing him? Like, what are your thoughts 2 episodes in on him? Because I think he's the glue of the show so far, if I'm being honest. Amanda Stenberg's been amazing. She's been the best performance, but Soul's the character bridging everything together. And I think, like Qui-Gon in The Phantom Menace, the story's going to come through him and his journey.
Yeah, I think you're mostly right about that. I think what I found interesting about Sol as well is that, you know, much like the other Jedi Masters, he has his own. There is a unique way in which he handles things. So Indara had her style. Torben was, you know, during his vow thing, was purely just like meditating within his own thing, and could defend himself with just the Force. Um, and I really appreciated Sol's fight sequence with May, and that you can really see how skilled and trained he is. But yeah, I think he is the central character with Osha. I think it's really both of those and May. It's difficult to kind of say, oh, this is like the one character, because I do feel like it is kind of half ensemble a bit, but with a focus on kind of three characters, because we are following Sol when we meet him. We are following Ocean. We are following May. We got getting those unique things. We're not getting really unique kind of conversations or sequences with any of the other characters. So for me, it's those three that are holding this together. So yeah, I think his relationship with Ocean is really interesting, and just the way he teaches. I know with Jackie, you can see how what he's actively trying to do, and you know, like Phill said, you know, bit cheeky, but patient. It uses, you know, her common sense, but yeah, just having a bit of fun. I think Jackie is kind of like a nice blend of what a Jedi should be and what a Jedi is at that time. And Osha feels like she's got a lot of patience and a lot of kind of stuff kind of done in her head because of Sol. Now, whether that's the right or wrong thing, I'm not too sure, because again, as Phill said, you know, it's a lot of emotions blind you in the Jedi. You know, you've got to push that out. You know, so whether or not this situation will now affect Osha and kind of make her rethink, maybe she'll go to the dark side. Who knows what's going to happen? But I mean, again, that's just random speculation, which probably has no merit. But no, I think again, it's what's happened in the past. I think, you know, I'm now imagining kind of like a Kill Bill situation. You know, May has been wronged and she's going after the people that wronged her. Especially when there's just four of them, it's a little bit weird. But yeah, I liked his interactions with Venestra as well, and just kind of that whole kind of Jedi Temple situation. I can't wait to the council. Hopefully, we'll get a nice scene like we did in the prequels, and we'll see like a vast array of different Jedi that we don't know. But no, I mean, again, I'm gonna sing Lee Jung Jae's performance here and back, because I just think it's outstanding what he's been able to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be with you both on that in terms of it is the glue, and I do think that from the light side perspective, you'll see Master Soul and Osha be the main focus, with obviously like Yord and Jeki and Venestra be that kind of part from the light side. Also, I love with earlier in, I think it's in episode 1, where you have Master Soul after you've had the entire little breakout, you had the prison scene. He just rocks up, does a quick Jedi mind trick, finds out what he needs to, and cracks on with it. There's no kind of pretense to it, and it is all a whole defensive thing, and it is what the Jedi should be. You can still see the cracks of what makes them what they become and their ultimate downfall, but this is the height of the Jedi, the height of the knowledge and the power, but also the embodiment, the temples all over the galaxy, the amount of good and protection they're trying to do. That's the whole thing. If you remember, it's they're guardians and protectors of justice of the peace in the Old Republic. It's the whole thing of they are there to protect and serve and be that embodiment of light. But what I want to also look at is the flip side, what we haven't talked about yet, which is the Acolyte. The whole point of the name of the show, when you have the scene in the potion, well, I suppose the apothecary, the potion shop, where Kimara is like, well, you've got to kill someone without a weapon, or else Master won't be happy. And that's something's like, okay, the Master's referring to this dark person with a lightsaber who we briefly seen and briefly heard, which a friend of mine phoned me up specifically to tell me he thinks that's Keanu Reeves doing the voice. Like that, he phoned me up specifically just to talk about that. Which I'm like, you know what? I can see it.
They changed the voice, didn't they, in post? Like, 'cause there's 2 different versions of the trailers. So, I mean, if they take that off and it's Keanu Reeves, I'd be so shocked. I don't think I'd ever recover from Star Wars. Like, I'd feel like it's a deep fake on YouTube.
Maybe, but the whole point is, though, you have that side to it. We haven't really gone into the discussion of that dark side apart from May. But the whole thing of the master won't be happy. You have to kill someone without using a weapon. It's like, okay, what's this? I mean, yes, we are focusing on the whole what happened with the fire, the light side, the dark side, all that. I was here going, but what about this? This seems really important, and no one's talking about this bit yet. But like, there's something here, and that's also what's to come. So you've got the glue, and I agree with you both 100% on Lee Jung-ji's performance as Master Soul, and I do think it'd be the glue. I love the Qui-Gon reference. I agree with you both wholeheartedly. I just add on the extra of, but on the flip side, for the darker side, there's still intrigue and still a relationship between May and Osha. But then on May's side, you then also have this mysterious master. You have more to come from that. Then we have Kel Nacker coming into it. You got so much more that's going to be there. So I agree with you both, but just also want to add in the curiosities I've got for the darker side. I know we're not going to speak forever on this. I know we'll come back and talk over the next 6-7 weeks of the show. But for now, from these first 2 episodes, I hope people who haven't been fans of the High Republic before, either people go and look into it, or if they just watch the show for the show's sake and enjoy it for what it is and don't fancy going reading stuff, I hope they enjoy it for the ride. But this is why I've loved the books and the comics so far. We haven't seen anything from like the Nihil or the Drangir or anything like that. You probably won't see that pop up in this show. And I'm happy for that, to leave them to where they've been left in the books and comics. But to give you a flavor of what I've been enjoying for the last few years, I'm very happy.
I want to talk the Acolyte stuff. So my theory, it's what, one scene at the end of episode 1, right? He's spoken about in episode 2. I think that is the apprentice of whoever the master is, and the apprentice is recruiting his new apprentice to try and kill his master. And it
has a very Dooku and Asajj vibe.
Yeah, that's one way of doing it, and she's not got a lightsaber yet. Yet is the key word, I guess. But it's a really interesting, and obviously, we've seen the mask guy, and people kept comparing it to Kylo Ren. Like, sounds similar. It looks like a Knight of Ren type thing with the sort of skull teeth and that. But I'm very intrigued by this because I like the enigma surrounding, and we haven't really had that. I mean, literally the Phantom Menace, where we've been in the background for a millennium, but there's still always been 2 of them in that background, and we know that Darth Plagueis is, I believe, canonically alive. And Phil, I mean, the High Republic, you mentioned the Nihil as the main villains of that. They very specifically worked around the fact that there aren't Sith because, they haven't revealed themselves at that point in time. I think this is the show is where we're going to get close to. People say that, if they get seen, they should be killed. And I kind of get that logic. At the same time, I'm also sat there like political cover-ups, all these sorts of things. Like, I know I'm way far into the future about theorizing stuff, but I would like to equally have an interesting story about the Sith in the background and what they're doing, as well as the characters we've been introduced to, as well as the Jedi, because you can't have the light without the dark. And that's how I've always viewed Star Wars, that I'm equally as intrigued by the villains as I am by the leads. And I think it would be very interesting to see, not like what the plan is, but that is clearly going to be a character that's mystery unravels as the weeks go by. And I know people sort of laugh at Ahsoka, where there was the Inquisitor and he died like 1 episode in, and everyone had been hyping him up for weeks. Could it have been Starkiller and all this sort of stuff? But it does feel like this is going to be a key plot point. Now, they confirmed it wasn't at Skellig Michael, which people thought it could have been off the trailers. It looked like Skellig. But I like the fact that, okay, we're going to find this out eventually. But the idea that you've got the potions on Khmer, and he's sort of talking, he's helping her make that potion, and he brewed the potion, but it was a potion from her home planet. That's what I found quite curious that people haven't picked up on. And Charlie from Imperial Senate Podcast, his theory is that he could be the villain, hiding in plain sight as a sort of chemist and whatnot, watching over. So I like the fact we're getting this with Star Wars, and for a show such as this, because I know we ultimately know it ends with the Phantom Menace, but it's not like Thrawn, right, where we know it eventually leads to something in between that's not going to be there for episode 7 a couple of years after, that is at least heirs to the Empire. It feels like they can almost have free reign on so many things. There's just a couple of things we know they can't do, and I think it's delivering with that, and that's what my excitement is. I don't know what your thoughts are on the villain side of things, because to me with Star Wars, the villains are as important as the things. And sorry, quick question by Carl: will they mention Plagueis in the series? I'd be really honest. I hope he's the master of the guy we've sent. That's just me being a fan, thinking I'd love to see him in live action. It could happen. He's alive. I felt it. I'm checking. But Leslie Headland is a big fan of the prequels, and when you've got that prequel background running a show, surely as a showrunner you'd be like, I would love to put this like Yoda, right? I'd love to put Yoda on screen at some point in the show. I don't know if it will happen. I think it probably could happen for a scene at some point. And if it gets to that moment, that would be great. If it doesn't get to the moment, I'm fine. But I feel like surely Plagueis is that, like, if you were a showrunner, that's your chance to put him in live action. If it's for one scene, do it. If it's for an episode, maybe. I mean, the press was showing the first 4 episodes. I didn't want to watch 3 and 4 because I want to watch it properly. Like, is it not with my email address across the screen in 1080p? Sorry, I sound like a snob. I honestly feel like Plagueis is a very real possibility. And I'd like to see what the Sith are doing in the background. Are they preparing a plan for the future, or are they just vibing?
Just vibing, just chilling. I mean, I'm fine with Plagueis not being a big part of it, to be honest. I kind of, if there's kind of like a tease, either you allude to Plagueis, or if it's like maybe at the very end of either the season or when the series ends, maybe lead into that, or whatever it is, to allow a more fuller story on Plagueis, perhaps, then that could be interesting. But I guess in terms of the villains of this story and kind of what's going on, I really just hope that what they do and what the Jedi do, in fact, adds further weight to what happens in the prequels and to Order 66. I always think about, well, I don't always think about this weird, but like when Yoda says, failed I have after his fight with Palpatine, I always kind of took that as kind of more than just, he's failed the fight, he's failed in more ways than one. And obviously if he's part of this era, which of course he is, could he make decisions? Could he have turned a blind eye to something which then leads to other things? Could something at this time have been stopped in order for kind of the Sith to then not remain hidden and then come out as it did when it did? Those are the things I'm kind of thinking about, kind of hoping just so that more is added. I mean, we feel the weight of Order 66 more and more as more shows, games, medium come out about it. It's such a more bigger thing than it was in 2005. But yeah, I think there's a lot of mystery anyway about who this villain is. I would probably lean more, George, towards what you're thinking about the Apprentice rather than an actual, Master of the Sith. But you are right about the poison and about from the homeworld. That's why I mentioned before about the personal element of it. This does feel like a very personal vendetta mission. And is that to then help with Phill, again, what you said about emotions? Is it helpful to do this to achieve kind of what you need to achieve to go to that next level? Is to kind of kill the people that wronged you and do it in different ways so that you're fully trained not fully trained, but trained enough so that you can defend yourself and fight in different ways, then perhaps. But yeah, I think, was it Khmer? I thought he was funny, and I thought I'm again intrigued about his background. We know a little bit, but it's kind of, how did he get involved properly in this? Could he be in disguise? Could he be? What is he to May? What is he to this master? Is there more people involved? Is the more to this? I think so many people are just all about the villains. Oh, they're the Sith, and there's only 2 of them. But there's more than just the Sith out there, and we've seen that throughout the entirety of Star Wars, whether it's bounty hunters or kind of the Hutts or anything else. There's so many villainous characters. How do they work together to support each other? So yeah, I mean, I just want to know more about the villains as well now. I mean, there's a lot that they need to kind of get out, and that's why I'm intrigued about if there's another season, because then it's like, right, they're going to sprinkle this stuff out and then do more reveals later down the line. But yeah, I think there's a lot more to talk about in the coming weeks, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, I piggyback off that. I think you'll see Plagueis. My theory is that you'll see him in the last season. I think it's going to be very much as the mystery deepens as to who's killing the Jedi, in terms of like they're now worked out as May. Okay, this season will be them kind of trying to get to May. Afterwards, it'll be then okay, but May wasn't alone. Okay, she had a master. Okay, then we track down whoever this person is. By the end of it, you'll then they'll unravel it all, but they'll miss it. They'll miss who it is overall. So they'll still miss the fact that it is a Sith, but it will be Plagueis. And I think the entire show will probably end on him coming across the either someone will hurt him enough that he needs to save his own life, or he'll come across something that requires him to stop death. Something's going to be along that line somewhere for it to tie into the whole tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, and there'll be something that it'll be at the end. It's going to be very much a bigger problem, a bigger fish to fry every single time. It's going to escalate, and I think by the time he gets to the end of it, there's also going to be something that gets covered up, and the Jedi miss the mark. And that whole thing of the Jedi aren't perfect will remain, and that's what I'm looking forward to see how they're going to do it. But that's me theorizing. That's me kind of having a look at what I think they could do. But either way, I'm excited to see how it gets done, and if there's more to come, then bring it on.
You're Plagueis. You're Plagueis. That's. I think that's what it is. He's hiding in plain sight.
Very much.
I would love it. And this, I mean, I've not seen Russian Doll, and I've heard really good stuff about Russian Doll as a series, and that Leslie Helen obviously works in that. And that is like, I know it's a Netflix series, but it's one where the whole show is it like you relive the same day over and over, but it's a mystery of a murder or something. Again, I've not seen it, but the stuff I've heard about it is very good, and it was very successful. And it feels like they've took that approach and put it into this. Again, off the limited information, but it does make it interesting for the show, and it kind of that's what it makes me want to know. Like, I'm in on the story. I mean, we're 2 episodes in, we're a quarter of the way through. I can't sit here and say I'm 3,000% invested. Like, I'm still not 100% certain on the High Republic as an era, limited time spent in that era, but I am curious at what's to come and what's happened so far. But I'm in for the journey to see where it's going to go, and that's not going to be for everyone, and that's fine. And maybe there'll be people that gravitate towards it as more episodes go by, and maybe there'll be people that drop off as more episodes go by. That is what happens when you do a series such as this. But I, for one, am, and I'm kind of intrigued by the 2 episodes. I've enjoyed the stunt choreography. We haven't spoken much about the production design, but again, it's the British crews. It looks better. It looks, I can't say it looks the best since Andor. That was like 2 shows ago. But it's one of those things, isn't it, where there are certain things where it looks and feels like Star Wars, and this has captured that more than some of the other shows. That's not me knocking the volume either. That's just my initial thoughts. But I don't really have too much more to say on these episodes. Do you guys?
No, I mean, because of the type of story it is, we're not getting branching storylines. The different characters that we get are only coming into it to be a part of this storyline, and then they're going off doing their own thing. So, I think, the main thing is kind of the initial setup of the story and meeting these characters. And we're at a point now where 2 Jedi Masters have been killed. There's another 2 to go, including Saul, and including, my new favorite Wookiee, anyway. So from what I've seen on one scene, so I'm looking forward to seeing him in action as well. And to go into a new environment. And if it is, a Predator episode, then I'm fully invested, even though I've never seen Predator yet. But the idea of it, I just makes me excited. And I think the first 2 episodes have felt a bit differently, the different environments that we've had. Go to this forest environment and see what's going to happen, if any new characters are going to come in, aside from Kalnaka as well. And yeah, I just think, it just feels mad to say that we're a quarter of the way in already. It feels like I'm saying that a lot. It's the same with Doctor Who as well. 2-episode premiere with 8 episodes. We're over halfway through that season now. So it's only in a couple of weeks we'll be halfway through Acolyte as well, which is insane.
Yeah. TV's flying. Sorry, Phil.
Listen, I haven't got too much to add. The only thing that you talk about the British production, as it were. I also twigged today what's been bugging me for the last couple of years when it comes to lightsabers on screen for Star Wars. Both in Kenobi and Ahsoka, both of which weren't shot here, they look too real. They look too kind of clean. Whereas the Acolyte already, they kind of have that old school kind of flickering, unstable look to them, which just looks like they did back in the originals and the prequels. It looks better. So even that's just a little bit of a tidbit for it. I mean, I do think, there's a lot more to come. There's a lot more we're going to see from it. And I'm already here for it. It does look more Star Wars. And I could sit here and wax lyrical for hours on the High Republic, but I don't need to. You guys are going to enjoy it for what it is. And that's all I asked for. So bring it on. Bring it on.
The only other thing that I know that I've seen as well as a criticism was the lightsaber hilts were thicker than usual, and that seemed weird. So again, people were like, "Oh well, it's a different era. It's 100 years behind in technology. Maybe lightsabers just developed to be a bit more, streamlined and slimmer. Perhaps I don't know."
There is an answer for that. So in the High Republic era, in Phase 3. In Phase 1 and 2, everyone's lightsabers are a little bit more ornate. Everything's that kind of gilded look to it. Everything's got all the gold and silver, all the bits added to it because it's personal flair, but it's not supposed to be a proper weapon. It's just more defense. But by the time you get to Phase 3 and they've got a big old fight on their hands, they have something called the preservation protocols, which is all lightsabers basically kind of get dumbed down. Everything gets they need to almost mass produce them. So in effect, you get these lightsabers look rather not similar, but they have a lot of similar parts. That's why you end up in episodes 1, 2, and 3 with everyone's lightsaber looking like a parts bin because, these preservation protocols have been in effect for so long. So the lightsabers you're going to see in the Acolyte are partly that and partly because, where the technology now is them using for an effect actual sabers, they are generally a little thicker anyway because you need to have the blade inserted. It's a mix of both practical effects and storytelling. At least that's from what I can see.
Cool. Well, internet, there's the answer. So thank you, Phil.
No, definitely, and it is true. The lightsaber. There's been a lot of discussion about lightsabers over the years. It's not white enough in the core, and there's so many It's weird to judge lightsabers, but you are. There's something that can sometimes look peculiar about them, and maybe it's the different productions. But it felt very prequel-esque with this, and I kind of like that, and that is the sort of styles I'm into. But kind of wrapping up with that is everything for this week. As I said, we covered 2 episodes. There's not as much stories to talk about, but I'm sure as the episodes go on, when it's one episode discussion, we can really get into the nitty-gritty of those and see where the story goes. But in the meantime, we do want to hear your thoughts, so please do comment on your thoughts on the Acolyte. If you like this, if you're intrigued by the series, we'll be live every Wednesday, probably similar times, but we'll always post on socials when we do. And those socials are linktree.com/CinemaSavvy. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. There's a link to Redbubble in the description below. What else is coming up on the channel? Well, Hitman's out on Friday. That's me trying to remember the calendar. And Doctor Who streams are every Tuesday. So Tate is running those. Sam, you've been on a couple already on episode 1 and 2. And
I may be on another one I don't know yet.
Yeah,
but we'll see.
And there is a cinema release, isn't there? They're showing the last episode in a cinema, so they will be live every Tuesday. Acolyte's going live every Wednesday, and any other reviews will be sort of in between those days. So once again, thank you all for watching, and be sure to join us on the next one. Take care.